Good. Let's get started. So today we want to talk about what do Tesla bulls see that.
It's sort of like waiting for Elon to start his show.
No. Hey, Robert, it was great seeing you at the event. We didn't get just that brief moment, but hey, we got to hug a little bit there. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Real.
It was so awesome meeting so many people in the
Yeah,
community.
that was one kind of event. All right, well, let's get started. Let's get started. So today we want to talk about what do Tesla bulls see that bears don't. I think the conversation has really just been highlighted, particularly over the last several days. You know, we all saw the same event. We all interpreted that, you know, many of us interpreted differently than others, right? Some of us are thinking that we've made incredible progress towards robotaxi, towards even the bots progress, and others just don't see it, and they think it's just all, you know, fluff and just guesses and so forth. So what is it that Tesla bulls can see that others don't? As we always do, let's get started with you, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the event's been talked about a lot. I think there is a disparity of, you know, if you were there versus not being there. I think there's a disparity with, you know, experiencing it live and, you know, touching, seeing, feeling things versus it, you know, being two-dimensional on the screen. But even, you know, watching it back and two-dimensional on the screen, yeah, it was pretty impressive. I just think people had different expectations going into the event, and Tesla also has to, you know, play a role with that as well in terms of setting proper expectations for the event, especially with analysts. You know, there were people dreaming about a compact car you can order, like a drivable compact car, not the Robotaxi, like one you can order being unveiled. And I mean, it's just, I mean, you're really on a hope and a prayer for that, because you know, Tesla was, you know, has been pretty clear that that's most likely a first half 2025 to enter production. And as I explained on our, you know, our podcast this week, and I wrote a post about, I mean, there's no way they want to Osborne 12 to 15 billion dollars of components on order for the 3 and Y. Not saying that they would all perish, but you're putting your business at enterprise risk by putting a lower cost, you know, product in a similar category and making them available. When I say similar, I'm saying seats 4 or 5, and you know, is lower cost than what you're selling today. So, but yeah, I think there's, you know, there's definitely a connection forming between all the different, you know, business units and things that Tesla has started. You've seen them start all these various things over the past decade, whether it's a supercharger network, or whether it's insurance, or whether it's their battery business. And now you saw that post today with the bot and the tie-in and the shared components between the bots and the vehicles. So when they're sitting down and having a conversation with Samsung on cameras, they're having a conversation now. Instead of a couple million cars a year, they're having the conversation of doing long range planning and many tens of millions of bots that would be produced with these cameras. So everything's is starting to converge. And one of the posts I made, it really all depends on your time horizon. If you were, you know, if you had 0 DTE options, or you were trying to trade for that Friday, well, you know, that's one kind of person, and you're a fine person. It's just different. It's just, and then there's people that have, you know, longer term horizons that, you know, there's kind of something for everyone there. But, you know, I think Tesla was also, people were like, well, they need more details. Well, I mean, they weren't putting a product for sale at the event. So if you're going to put a product for sale, I think the details need to come for people to lay down money, but that's not, they weren't doing that. And in terms of details, they told you what their targets are for cost per mile, and they told you a lot of things. And if you talk to the engineers at the event, you heard even some more insights. So, but I think, yeah, it's a case of like just expectations and management of those expectations. But I left that event even more encouraged about, you know, their products, the convergence of them, and and what they're doing. And I'm looking forward to where things go from here. I think this month we have exciting releases on FSD, and I think the next event, whether it's an event or it's some sort of press release, is they are going to enter in production on lower cost vehicles, and maybe that's in the first half of next year. But I think there's more products coming. I think I've never seen this many products under development as well in the company, and it shows kind of the span and scope growing. It's a lot of software and hardware products too. So I'll leave it there and let others speak. But I think there's definitely a disparity of if you were there or not, and what your time horizon is. To me, those were two key factors. And if you're literate in tech, that's the other thing. You have to be literate in tech to understand what
Sure. Okay, I like that. Robert, did you want to say something?
Yeah. I think it goes deeper than this. I did a lot of consumer research going around America asking people, are you willing to get in a car without a steering wheel years ago, right? And the answer was, fuck no, from everybody. Now, those of us in the Tesla family, and certainly those of us who listen to X and we're at this event, have deep experience with FSD, or at least a deep understanding of it, because anybody who listens to Omar talk for an hour gets up to date real quick about how good FSD is. Most normal people have no fucking idea how good it is, right? And how much ahead of the rest of the industry. I got a lot of haters this last week, like, oh, Toyota can do this, or somebody said BMW can do the same thing. I'm like, no, it can't. After I posted my videos of having the car drive me without my hands on the steering wheel, it might be able to do that in the freeway, but not to the extent of driving through the city and handling all sorts of weird anomalies and all the stuff that Omar covers in depth. So I think you start there. The understanding of the technology isn't there. The trust of the technology isn't there. And I think that's what this event was. This event was a very different press conference or an announcement event than I've ever seen, because it laid out a vision of the future and it didn't really announce any product that we could buy. Right? It sort of hinted that the product is coming, but it didn't really. I couldn't buy a cyber cab and lay down 30 grand or 25 grand on a car. I couldn't buy an Optimus. I couldn't get a ride in the robo. How do you say the robo van? Robo. I can't even say it how Elon did, but there wasn't anything to buy, and so this was a very different event, which is, I think it was Tesla's master plan. Elon used to write white papers and sort of lay out what he was going to do for the next decade or so. So this was the same thing, but we were in it. We got to experience what the future might feel like, with cars driving by without a driver in it, with robots walking around the street with people around them and serving you drinks and stuff like that. It was a master plan for the next decade of Tesla. And from that point, it succeeded. But people who thought there was going to be a product announcement or something they could buy, they didn't understand that. And maybe a little bit of expectations were set wrong or something like that. I don't know how if I was on Tesla's PR team, I don't know how I would correct those expectations without leaking what is coming, but maybe they could have done a little bit better, that this is not a product announcement, or I don't know, it doesn't matter now because it's happened. So, yeah, does that make sense?
I love that. Yeah, no, I think it goes beyond just time frame and setting expectations, right? Because it's just there's so much more to this. There's this people who just doesn't believe, no matter what Tesla does, what Elon does, and after accomplishing things, rolling out products, they still think everything's impossible. Even after, right, we saw news today, the co-founder of Google's Waymo, Anthony Lewandowski, says that Tesla has a huge advantage in data and the self-driving race. You've got Jensen Huang being interviewed of NVIDIA saying that it's incredible that Elon was able to launch a data center in 19 days while it was taking folks years. You got Tesla themselves showing you that they're launching products. Now it takes them a little bit longer, but it actually is physically there. And you can actually touch it. You can actually go in there, and there was 20 robo taxis there. You can actually get in a Cybertruck. You can get into a semi today. And you got DHL announcing how incredible it is, adding on top of what Pepsi has. So even if other third parties are validating it, you yourself validating it, there's many people who still think it's just smoke and mirrors and it's all fake. Uh,
This happens every time there's a paradigm shift, right? When the iPhone came out, I was yelled at for standing in line to buy the first one. You know, people, even in Silicon Valley, people would drive by, "Hey, idiot, why are you standing in line for a fucking phone? You know, go get a Nokia," or something like that, right? And every time, 1 million people protested when Zuckerberg turned on the news feed. Every time we're going through a paradigm shift, people resist and refuse to see the future because they're not built for that. I am. I've written 7 books that predict decade-long changes coming, but most normal people, when you talk to them, they're not thinking like that or understanding it or doing any research or talking to the innovators about what is about to come to the market,
Herbert,
right?
yeah, one more quick one to add to what Robert's saying is, yeah, there was a different audience at this besides shareholders. If you compare the 2022 AI Day to this in 2024, that was a recruiting event. Lots of young engineers trying to get people into the door, and I think this 2024 event is going to help with recruiting as well. But it was less of a recruiting event, and there were like partners and titans of industry at this event, and we don't know the exact numbers. There's people, floating rumors out. I mean, whatever. But we know that there were people at this event, that could be potential partners, autonomy partners, whether it's humanoids or something else. And you saw the Benioff tweet a couple days later where he's grabbing, videos from the event and posting them on his own timeline and talking about, how the things could converge. So I think we went from recruiting to now we're advancing to major partnerships, and then it gets kind of nutty because I think everybody's trying to model Tesla with how many widgets are they going to build and ship, and how much software are they going to build and ship, with Tesla, branding on it. But what if there's, now they're sending parts of stuff out, they're selling supercharging now. What if they're selling FSD? What if they're selling and leasing humanoids? Like, I don't think anybody's ready for that from a modeling perspective. And I think that was the next phase. I'm not saying any deal was done or whatever, but there were people there to certainly see and experience Tesla's engineering capability. Leave it there.
Yeah. And then obviously this morning, Uber CEO, right? He was interviewed and he was saying that, competing with Elon is no easy matter. We take nothing for granted. We really want to partner with the autonomous industry. We'd love to have it on the platform. Said people, there's a people who are CEOs of other companies who know that they don't want to compete with Elon, and yet there's people out there who are
Well,
willing to compete.
okay, let's talk about the economics of robotaxi, right? Uh, if I rent a Uber to to go to the airport, for instance, which is about an hour of driving, that costs about $70. Now, 20 of that is the human that's driving the car, right? So if you take out the human, now all of a sudden you have ability to underprice Uber by a lot, and that's going to decimate Uber because everybody's going to. First of all, this whole event we saw laid out sort of how cool the cars are, right? And how nice the experience of being in them is, and that's going to go against Uber, but Uber can't price as low as Tesla can because they have a human driving in the car. And the experience of being in an Uber, because the human is taking one of the best seats up front, is way, way less because you're sitting in the back in the Uber. In the cyber cab, you're sitting up front in a really nice big seat, right? And it's much more comfortable than being in the back. I mean, who wants to sit in the back on a Model Y going in the airport for an hour? You want to sit up front if possible, right? Here, there's two seats up front that are open because there's no human in it. So the experience is better and it's going to be a cheaper price eventually.
And well, that's my point, though, right? You have the Uber CEO obviously saying, "Hey, we'd love to partner with Tesla," but and then there's so many bears out there going, "Tesla will never get it to FSD. It will never happen. Why are you guys smoking mirrors?" Omar, I know you spend half your day trying to counter other people who have this, attitude that they just can't, they don't believe anything that Tesla says or will accomplish. What's your thoughts on what is it that you're seeing that others don't?
Well, I mean, I think there's always going to be people who are naysayers, especially if you're ambitious. You go back to the launch of the Model S, and people said, well, they're never going to be able to make a sedan. They don't have enough money. They're going to go bankrupt. And you go to the Model 3 unveil, and people said, well, there's no way you can make an EV profitably for $35,000. And you look at the car they have today for $35,000, and it's much better than obviously what they unveiled 7 years ago. So honestly, if you're not aiming high enough that people are saying it's impossible, you probably just aren't being ambitious enough. But really, I think at the event, they didn't just unveil a few new products like the Cybercab and the Robovan. They really unveiled a new company, if you think about it. This was kind of a point for people to see the pivot this company is doing. For the first time, we had a Tesla product unveil where there were no cars that you drive. There were no steering wheels to be seen. And it all felt very familiar, but these are very different products. These aren't cars you drive, these are robots that move around the world on their own. The Cybercab doesn't have a charge port. So it's a very, very different vision of the future. And we got to walk around the event with many of the people who are in this room and see driverless Model Ys and Cybercabs pass us by. We saw friends interacting with robots, with Optimus, which, by the way, is just insane to see in person. And I don't think Elon's exaggerating when he says this is going to be the biggest product ever. This is, I think, the emergence of a multi-trillion-dollar market potentially. And you can really just see people's quality since, maybe the internet or the mobile phone. So it was a pretty incredible event, I think. The naysayers, they'll always be there, especially if you're being ambitious. These products, this is not just a concept car. This is something they plan to produce in the millions.
For me, Tesla and SpaceX this week have given us a phenomenal mini World's Fair where we got to party and celebrate and have a real taste of the possible future that we can all be part of. So I'm stoked. I'm riding this massive high over the whole event, and there's something really liberating because if you go to a World's Fair, you're just expecting to be blown away and have a great entertainment. You're not worried about your stock portfolio. You don't have all these massive concerns. You're just there to be a kid in awe and wonder.
Yeah, so since we're talking about the event, I wanted to talk about the broader view. What is it that bulls see that bears don't, right? But with the event, we actually saw 20 humanoid bots walking around. Yes, they were some part of it human assisted, but then we also saw 20 cybercabs driving around. You can touch it, you can play with it, you can actually, do anything you want with it. I actually told the cybercab to stop now, stop midway the drive. You can control where it goes. And yet, what is the bear position if they saw this? They're saying, well, they're not as advanced as they thought that they should be, or what they assumed that they would be. But can they say that Tesla is not progressing at all after you saw this?
And that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it was human controlled, but that's missing the point. This was a vision for how the future will look in a decade, right? And in a decade, when we have robots in our house, we're going to be talking to them just like we did at the party. And they're going to be interacting with us and playing games with us and doing things for us, just like at the party, right? And they're going to teach us even to dance, just like at the party. They This was a vision of where the future is going to be when this product is completed. And they didn't show off a lot of AI because we all know it's not ready yet. It's not ready at Figure AI company. It's not ready at 1x.tech company. It's not ready at the Chinese companies. I mean, it's coming along at different rates at all these companies, but it's not ready to be in our home with a kid jumping on a robot and it not falling over and hurting that kid or kicking the kid or doing something wrong, right? We're a long way off from that. I figure it's 2027 before we're going to really see a robot that is capable of being in our homes. Now, the other thing is nobody today is comparing the AI progress of Boston Dynamics and Tesla Corporation because why would Elon want that kind of conversation right now, even if they're a little bit ahead on AI? So by not showing it to us, he's whet the appetite for next year or the year after when they have another AI day or a robot day and show off the progress. The Go back to the teleoperation though. First of all, teleoperation is going to be a key feature of the Optimus robot. Even 20 years from now, you're going to be teleoperating into your robot a lot because that's going to be a cool feature. So let's say you're on a road trip, you jump into the robot, you can do all sorts of stuff in your house, feed the dog, kick the dog, turn off the stove if you left it on, right? See what's going on in the backyard. If there's some commotion there, right? You can see that remotely when you're wearing a pair of glasses or someday, 20 years from now, having a Neuralink or something like that. The teleoperation of 20 robots on the street with people around them and serving us drinks and stuff like that with such low latency was freaking amazing. And it demonstrated that the robot is smooth and can be confident and can manipulate things and move things and dance and do all the things that we saw at the party. That is impressive engineering. To be able to do that with 20, I heard one fell. I didn't see any fall the whole night, and I was watching them a lot, right? So that was impressive. That to me tells me they're about to start speeding up the AI learning of the robot industry a lot because that's how they're going to train the AI is by having a human doing laundry, doing dishes, working on a factory line, stuff like that. And by doing that over and over, they're going to make the AI much trained, right? That's how you're going to train the AI to do new things with the robot. So the teleoperation effort that Tesla has, and to be able to do it in public in front of 2,500 people with us walking around, is fucking insane. And next year, I won't be shocked if they come out with some AI updates and show off how good their robot is and that it passes everybody real quick.
Robert, I love what you're saying. And the idea of your robot being a bit of an avatar for you is awesome. For example, it can grab a package off the porch, or it could even, if you teleoperate it in, you could answer the Amazon question or what have you, if you need to interact with someone or go check the mail. So you can be on vacation or wherever, but those little things that you might ask a neighbor to do or have a relative stay over for, you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. If your neighbor needs some sugar, they knock on the door, you're not home, the robot can go get the sugar for you, for them, right? Or something like
Xander,
that.
did you have a question?
No question. I was going to answer your question.
Yes, please.
I think your questions uses some terminology that's specific to the stock, right? The bears on Tesla are right. You're using TSLA and not Tesla the company. This wasn't a presentation for investors. This was a vision casting of the company, and I think those two need to be disconnected. Bears will do what they do. They have giant put positions that they want the price to go down. They want to make money. This isn't about that. This is just like everything that Robert is countering with is that's the point. I got to rub shoulders with a robot um, for the first time in my history. People like once we start seeing robots walking on the street, that like we see them driving on the street, and most people uh most people don't even know that it's happening, and some are hating against it because of probably their stock positions or their put positions. So for me, it's one of these things that there's literally nothing that we can say that's going to make a bear want to change their mind. They're not interested in that. They're just interested in exploiting the the stock price and getting some money. But as an investor, as a long-term investor, with a portfolio that has shares that I don't sell covered calls against or don't want to sell covered calls against, and I want it to ride that next wave up. That those are I'm so secure in my decision to go all in and sell the house and all of the crazy stuff that I've done.
Thanks, Sander. Let's give Warren. Thank you. I know it's super early your time. Just you can take that question. What do Tesla bulls see that bears don't? Take it any way you want to address that.
Well, just a couple of comments first. I mean, what Tesla bulls see is a future that's more than a quarter out, and that's a short answer to we see millions of robots and tens, hundreds, 100 million plus robots, and in Elon's words, 100 million cybercabs generating insane profits in the late 2020s, early 2030s, and the value it's at 25x just on on Robotaxi alone, and Optimus might be 10x that. But I wanted to talk about two things. So there's the teleoperation. Your people are saying, "Oh, it's teleoperated." Well, what do you mean by teleoperated? Do you think there's some nerd in the back room with a joystick, and he's pushing forward and back and left and right, or he's got a, more complex game controller, and he's got like a turbo button or something? Like, what exactly are they wearing? Motion capture suits and walking on like some sort of, multi-directional treadmill? No. So the robot has some fun.
They were wearing a VR headset and they had controllers on their hands, a sort of glove that they could manipulate their human fingers and have that read, and that would control
But
the robot.
the point is that
There's plenty of companies
the
that do
point is
that.
that the robot has so many degrees of freedom that you'd have to wear a motion capture suit unless the robot has developed some inherent capability, like it walks, you tell it where to walk to, and it walks to where you tell it to walk. The
Yes,
the teleoperator
the
is not
walking was AI.
right. The teleoperator there's and then the longer term the training of the AI, there's two different things. There's like training it to perform a task. So you have somebody wear a motion capture suit and perform the task, and you use that to train Optimus how to do the task. But there's a much larger issue, which is real world AI, which is not being trained to perform a task, but being trained to understand the world around you. So the car is is navigating space. The FSD is navigating space, and Optimus is also navigating space. And Optimus has learned to navigate space from what the car learned. And the process of learning real world AI, the robot has to learn, number one, It has to learn how to navigate much more complex spaces. The car doesn't climb stairways. The car doesn't walk into an elevator and walk out of an elevator. It doesn't walk through a forest. It doesn't walk on a beach. The real world outside of roads is much more complicated than roads, even though roads are difficult. And then the bot also has to learn how to manipulate objects. The car doesn't have an arm. It doesn't have a hand to pick things up. So my expectation is in the early days, you don't have enough robots to generate enough data to train real to train AI to the extent that you want. You can do it in simulation, but it's not the same. So at some point they're going to manufacture 10,000 robots, and that's going to generate a lot of data. That's probably enough data that you're going to be able to train somewhat meaningfully on. And then the next generation robot, the one that like they're about to start manufacturing, I think what I'll call Gen 1 of the Gen 1 production version of the robot. The one that you could see the hand, but you didn't see the whole robot. So they'll make 10,000 of that and put it in Tesla factories. Then the next generation robot, they'll make 100,000. They'll sell it to industrial customers and warehouse customers and things like that. And then the third generation is when Elon says they're going to start making 1 million a year. And so as you have 10,000 robots and then 100,000 robots, you start to get a lot more data and you start to have a lot more to upload to the training compute, and you're building a lot more training compute, and that's what it's going to take. And this is a probably more than a decade long project, maybe 2 or more decades, to really develop the real world AI that Optimus is gonna have. And so it'll be able to perform lower level tasks, and then over time it'll be able to perform more, and it'll be able to, you tell it to do something, it's going to be able to figure out how to do it rather than you telling it precisely what to do. The other quick thing I just wanted to mention was the Optimus account posted a video of how Optimus is using all these parts from Cybercab. Or, they have a Cybercab, they break it down and talk about the parts that are going into Optimus. And there's an image of there's a battery pack in there that my rough estimate, you guys can go look at it yourselves. I think it's 13 or 14 cells wide by about 30 cells long. It's about 400 cells. The current 4680 is about 100 watt hours. By the time that Cybercab is in mass production in, say, 2027, going into real volume, they've ramped. Cybercell, the 4680 will probably have 110 watt hours, 10% improvement. So you're looking at about a 44 kilowatt hour battery pack for Cybercab, which if it averages 20 miles an hour, including waiting periods, that's a solid 12-hour day. So I just figured that out like an hour ago or less. So I hope that's helpful. I'll shut up now.
Hey, Warren said some really cool things about training. I wanted to jump on just real quickly. When I was watching and thinking about it, my estimate was about 30 to 70% of the AI operations from the robots was pure AI. And when it was talking is when it was the least, that might have been 100% in those moments. The speaking was 100% the teleoperator. But if Optimus is in shadow mode, hearing the questions, taking in the questions, and then learning from the responses that the human says, that's real world training, and that's really valuable.
You bring up a great point there. And now that Optimus has been shown to the public, they can walk it around and do much more R&D in public, because that won't, cause a news event and oh, what kind of robot is this, right? Everybody will know it's a Tesla bot, right? And you're going to see, I think over the next year, you're going to see a lot of that kind of thing show up in the community. Oh, look, there's an Optimus running around Stanford Mall, or something like that, because they have to do R&D in the real world to get it to walk on sand and grass and ice and rocks and stuff like that. Because you're absolutely right. The point that it has to do something very different than a car by going upstairs or walking around on these kinds of irregular surfaces to get into our homes or protect our homes or do work or whatever is a good one. So back to why do the Bears think differently than the Bulls? Um, it comes down to understanding how technology is changing products, and most people don't understand AI. They don't understand that AI starts worse than a child and keeps learning, and gets eventually better than any human. And we're just getting close to that with FSD now, right? We still, I think, have another year or two before it gets way better than any human, but we can see the path to that because we have the car and we have the technology, and we're always on shows like yours or Omar's or whatnot. And so we're all up to date on how AI evolves and thinks and talks and is trained and is built. Most people don't. The other thing is, most people don't have any clue about the auto industry internally. I do. I spoke to Mercedes-Benz R&D workers in Sunnyvale, California, and asked them, "Why don't you put a touchscreen in the car like Elon just did?" This was 10 years ago, and they said, "Well, we tried to suggest that to the executives, but the executives didn't want fingerprints on the glass, so they chose not to do that." Right? Partly because it costs some money too. And if you understand how the auto industry works internally, you'll understand why the other car companies can't compete and will not be able to compete now. For instance, I was talking to some of the engineers at the Tesla event last week, and I was asking about anomalies. For instance, I was driving across Nevada a couple weeks ago, doing about 85 on FSD, and a truck 18-wheel truck had a wreck right in front of me, overturned and spit 6 inches of dirt and rocks onto the interstate. Now, my FSD did not handle that because it was something that it had never seen before and was not trained to handle properly. So I was asking the engineers, "Well, how are you going to fix that?" He said, "Because you stepped on the brake, right?" "Yeah, we got the data in the servers. So we can walk in simulator and see what went down, and we can make a plan for how we're going to engineer that, how we're going to train on that, how we're going to go into the simulator and maybe do a whole 1,000 different versions of that wreck." Right? So that next time or 2 years from now, if somebody hits that same situation, it's going to handle it properly. It's the fleet size that matters. And nobody else has 7 million AI robots rolling around the world with an AI computer that's always uploading and always downloading. That's another thing Mercedes didn't do because they were scared of getting hacked.
So back to
Right?
the bull bear debate on this. I think what you have to do is, so first off, what Tesla was doing with that event is they were creating an image and they were burning it into the internet. So a couple of the images that were created, one was the single file or double file line of robots walking out from behind a black curtain, and it seemed like it wasn't going to end because there's just another couple coming out each time. So, and we haven't seen this before. We haven't seen this many bots kind of walking out, without being tethered or what. So that's an image, boom. And then the dozen or so or 20 or so cyber cabs, futuristic looking, pulling up to the curb, picking up somebody, driving away, pulling up, picking up somebody, driving away, pulling up, repetitive, over. Tesla was creating an image, the Robovan creating an image in people's mind of this is the future that they see. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to start connecting dots, and you can go beyond Tesla to connect the dots. First off, if you look at their manufacturing prowess, they are literally right now the only company that can create what they've shown and do it at the cost structure promised. I want to be very clear. There are other people that are trying to say or show that they've got a $30,000 or $35,000 robotaxi. They look like absolute shit. They look like, an Equinox or whatever. So Tesla's trying to show you a future, and then they have the assets to be able to actually produce it. Now you start connecting dots. What has Elon been doing with his companies, both with Tesla and XAI? He's been accumulating compute, and then he's been bringing it online faster than anyone. We went through it earlier, the 19-day bring up that takes about a year for others to do, and then the 3 years of planning prior that Tesla wiped out most of that as well. And so now you have Jensen Huang saying that we give this guy compute, he brings it up faster. So if you're Jensen Huang, you want to turn inventory as quickly as possible, and you want the customers that are going to pull it, install it, and then ask for the next order. So he's telling the story right now about the company and what they're doing, and he's also said that they're ahead in full self-driving. You heard the founder of Waymo discuss that Tesla, is way far ahead in terms of the solution. It's really ultimately a software thing to do. So if you're a bull or a bear, for both people, there's really dots that you can connect on both sides. And it's not just, you don't have to just listen to Tesla is the point, or just listen to Elon. You can listen to other titans of the industry. And finally, you saw the Benioff tweet. Again, it's kind of like whatever. He assembled some videos, and he's like, I think there's exciting partnerships. You saw the chairman of Stellantis there. You're seeing things that could be brewing in the background. You don't just have to listen to Tesla. So whether you're a bull or a bear, your data points now are starting to, it's not just a trust me bro thing and like listen to Tesla. You can listen to other respected titans of the industry and also draw your own conclusions as well.
Yeah, but do you think that maybe I know my answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. Do you guys think that Tesla and Elon they show things and they say things that are too far away, and maybe that's why the bears lamp on that seat? He never gets anything done. They're all talking smoke and mirrors.
I think that Elon's been talking about a colony on Mars and SpaceX, and I don't hear people complaining that I'm honestly waiting for, like, when they land the first humans on Mars. The critics are going to say, well, he said he was going to land 1 million people on Mars and he only landed 10.
Well, here, I'll tell you this. We can't be like unabashed at this. Look, it was called a product launch. And I'll say, whatever. There's an IR team. There should be some expectations set. Everybody shouldn't be running around with 14,000 different views of what this. Now they shouldn't have to telegraph what the event is either. If I were Tesla, I wouldn't telegraph the imagery I just explained about the bots and the cabs. They don't have to telegraph all that. But and part of this is a little bit, maybe a smidge of it. They could have been clear, like, hey, we're not per se launching a product you can order, but whatever. I'm sorry, but on the analyst side, and I like them all, and I talked to a bunch of them there too, and they're really good people. And this isn't about one person, but if you study, if you understand product and product availability, they're not going to put a product up that's literally in the same category of the 3 and Y and say it's going to be for sale in 6 months. There's no way in hell that they're going to do that. So to me, part of that to me is kind of common sense. So I don't know why there were so many analysts writing up that a compact car, available for sale, or earlier in 2025, or I don't understand why they would do that. So you know what? I think Herbert, to answer your question, you have to go back to the audience in that event. There's shareholders, traders, shareholders, investors in the company. Some of them could have been traders, that's fine, but mostly investors, medium, long term, and then partners. There was this whole area of hundreds of people. And quite frankly, when you have an event like that, you want to start having those longer term discussions. These capital allocations, they don't happen overnight. So if somebody wants to start, okay, hey, we want to start having this conversation. I'm not saying it's going to start at the event. They're going to grab him and try to talk to him or whatever. But I guarantee you that if this stuff is coming out, maybe it's in 2 years, this is the time to actually have those conversations and bring in a large swath of partners and show them this is what you're building, and you better get in line.
You just brought up something that I don't think has been discussed. If you're going to put a bunch of cyber cabs around the world, in China and America and Europe, just those three, you're going to have to build probably around 1 million to 5 million vehicles. Where's the capital coming from to do that? he might need to go to these people that he invited last week and say, okay, you sort of got a good idea of what cybercav is. I'm about to build them. I need $5 billion from you guys, something like that. And do that in 2 years right before the factory turns on, right?
Yeah, what did Larry Ellison say? $100 billion for a frontier, compute system, and we're nowhere near that. I'm not saying it has to be that number, but this compute's going to be expensive. The capital to build these products is going to be expensive. So yeah, you want
the
partners.
H1, yeah, the H200s that they're putting from NVIDIA into the data center, they start at 40,000, go up to $160,000 per. And already Tesla has 200,000, I think, of some of these machines and some of the older H100 machines. But that's a lot of capital to put in a building.
Herbert,
This is Larry. I don't think capital is an issue. If Tesla were to go to the capital markets, I don't say there's unlimited amount of funds available, but there's no limit to, there's no realistic limit in terms of capital that they could raise in the capital markets tomorrow. So, they've got a really good name in the capital markets. I don't think that's a limitation.
Herbert,
Well, now they all got the sales pitch for the future.
Herbert, there's one really poignant thing related to bulls and bears, and that's that the bears are really short-term thinkers. They can't help it. It's just how they were raised. That's what they're used to. But if you look at humans, humans learn 8 different ways. Some people have to touch it, experience it, visualize it. Some people need to read. There's just 8 different ways that people experience stuff or learn stuff. And that party and everything that happened with SpaceX landing, and suddenly, as it was landing on the very first attempt, I'm like, we're going to Mars. My whole spirit, my whole body, the energy, I was like electrified. I was just so excited. That was an experience that nothing anyone could have said would ever have done. Is because I saw it with my own eyes that I just my whole spirit knew. Now other people are used to seasons. Little babies, they need instant gratification, and the peekaboo game works because they already forgot. They can't think that long. In a lot of ways, analysts are the same way. They have really short-term thinking like little babies, and they're not used to all 4 seasons of the year. Now, for us as Tesla people and SpaceX and Muskonomy people, some of these things take 4 years, 5 years. I remember when the Cybertruck was first announced, the first time we started talking about the $25,000 car or Optimus, and we're making massive progress. And I think that's why we're all so excited, because we get seasons, we get big pictures, and it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. 2 summers from now or 3 summers from now, this is going to be incredible. But the people that are really short-term thinkers, they just can't. They're not capable of it. And as an investor, I'm like, great, you guys keep swing trading, you keep knocking that stock down occasionally and then driving it up, and I'm just going to keep making money the whole time and investing for the long term.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.